I declare open the Legislative Council Legal and Social Issues Committee public hearing for the inquiry into the management of sex offender information.
The management of child sex offender information is a complex issue which requires very careful consideration.
There are about 8 or 9,000 people on the register?
That's correct. So as of, I think, March of this year, it's about 9,066.
9,000. What percentage of those would fit into, would be child sex offenders?
I don't have the exact figure, but the vast majority of those would be child sex offenders.
There's been some challenges in the past, hasn't there, with sex offenders who pass away and removing them from the register. Is that still an issue? No, they'll remain as registrants for the purposes of overall reporting. So they are still on the registry, although we have obviously classified them as deceased. Why is that? What's the purpose of that?
I'm unable to go back to the history of why we do that, but it does, I think, just show that we've got a complete record ongoing.
Could you give me an idea of, out of that 9,000, how many are active?
So in the community of that 9,066, there's 4,462, so what we would call in community.
What % of offenders re-offend?
So those registrants, as we said, our figures are around about 10% of those will re-offend.
What measures are in place to protect the integrity and security of your database, and in particular for the registry in general as well?
There are some robust processes in place. I won't talk about what they have in terms of security and what it is, but we are quite confident that Victoria Police's overarching security overlay is quite strong, and it's certainly one that's dynamic as well in terms of emerging threats.
So the data is entered, stored, accessed. For how long does the information stay there? Because you touch base on what happens if the person passes away. But other than that, is there a time limit for how long the data will stay there?
We're not deleting information from the registry at this stage. And so we obviously follow Public Records of Victoria guidelines around all of that and the management of information. But as far as the registry goes and the case management system, that material is there at the moment ad infinitum.
Sometimes information is released to the public for those RSOs, registered sex offenders, that are unable to be located or not reporting for whatever purposes. Are you able to elaborate as to how often this has occurred in recent times or over the last financial year? Or
So I could say from probably in the last, including this year and last year, probably 6, perhaps approximately 9 since 2019.
Have you had a look at the West Australian model? It's something which political party I represent, we had a policy on that at the last election. It's obviously referred to by many people. It's a limited release scheme. Have you had a look at that or got any thoughts on that?
Anything that would add that layer of community safety without diminishing all of the positives is certainly something we're willing to have a look at. So yeah, I am aware of that, and I'd be really keen to see what sort of validated research around that would be of benefit to the Victorian community.
One of the other arguments against an expanded public access regime is that it can lead to increased recidivism. There
is significant research around the lack of structure for registrants and the impact that might have, so that if employment and if stable housing and if stable relationships are absent in a registrant's life, there is a potential or more likelihood that they may further offend, whether sex offending or whether it's broader offending.
If the police are actually called out to, let's say, a family violence incident, and the AFM, which is the affected family member, has children and the perpetrator is actually on the sex offenders register, is there any way that Victoria Police have the opportunity, or are they able to inform that person, the AFM, that the person that is in their house is actually a registered sex offender?
Yeah, that's correct, we can. The legislation allows for a notification for the protection of children.
In your view, what role public awareness and education campaigns, activities and other resources can play in reducing the incidences of child sex offending and recidivism?
You know, we would like to continue to to understand what are the sophisticated ways to get through to people and to help them understand what it is that might be involved in prevention and detection. And certainly, again, one of the most important things in that education is what can we do to overcome barriers to reporting.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It was we really appreciated the time and the openness of this hearing.